I want to share something that happened a couple hours ago. I went to the store to pick up a few things, and they had this ice cream that I really like on sale. So I took advantage and got a couple pints of it. And I was walking towards the checkout with all my other stuff in the cart. And there was this other woman walking in front of me who just had one item. It was just a jar of juice or something like that. She was carrying it in her hand. And there were two open checkouts and two employees checking people out. And she was kind of undecided on which one to go to. And one of the women comes out and says, "Hey, I can take you." And she goes, "Oh, okay." And then all of a sudden the other one comes out and says, "Oh, I can take you too." And so this woman who had the jar in her hand is like, "Oh, what do I do?" And she ultimately decides to go towards the checkout on the left. And then I go with the other one that's open. And it's this older woman who does the standard small talk. "Hey, how you doing?" I say, "Good." And she just kind of out of nowhere says, "Well, I'm having an adventure today. I always tend to have these adventures, and I'm having one today." And I said, "Oh, well, you're still standing, so it's going okay, right?" And she looked at me and went, "Oh, no, I'm doing an imitation of standing right now. That's how I feel." And, we kind of chuckled at that. But she makes a comment about the ice cream when she's checking it out and says, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to get some ice cream too. It's on sale before I leave. There's this kind that my dog really likes." And I just said, "Oh, well, that is amazing for your dog. What a jackpot owner the dog has that the dog gets ice cream." And she goes, "Yeah, I give him ice cream every night. He's a rescue. We went to the pound and I'm looking around at all the dogs. They're all barking. And then there's this one little chihuahua that I can see the ribs protruding out of its body. It was severely malnourished. It weighed 2 pounds. And chihuahuas are small to begin with, but this one was emaciated. And she said she looked at all the dogs, and this one dog wasn't barking. And she kind of said, "Okay, I think that's the one. That's the one that we're taking home. This one that's just being chill and is kind of looking around like, get me out of here." So they rescue this dog, and it turns out that it's a service dog. And I think it had to do with anxiety, like it could sense when the owner was upset or agitated in some way, and it would lay on them. And part of the way that it knew this was it could kind of sense when the heartbeat was elevated or something was off. And so that's why it would lay on the person and kind of get a read on that and then, do the thing where it's trying to calm you down. So she goes on telling the story about how her husband had just got a physical and everything was fine. But the dog started laying on the husband out of nowhere. And she's telling me, I'm thinking to myself, something's not right here. Why is the dog laying on him? And of course, the dog, because it had this ability trained into it, could sense that something was off with her husband's heart. So based on all of this, she says, you need to make an appointment with your cardiologist, go get checked out. And he goes to his appointment and they immediately admit him into the hospital. And I can't remember exactly what the diagnosis was. She might have actually not even told me now that I'm thinking about it. But in any event, they admit him to the hospital and they tell him and his wife, if he had gone to work, you would have found him dead. This was a very serious situation that was going on, and the dog discovered it. So essentially, the dog saved her husband's life. And I'm sitting there saying, wow, that's scary, but what an amazing story, right? That's really cool that you were in this pound with all these rescued animals, and your intuition led you to pick this animal that saved your husband's life. And she goes, yeah, when you put it like that, it is pretty cool, actually. And I was like, well, he definitely earned that ice cream you're going to give him tonight and every other night, right? And she's like, yeah, for sure. And it just was a great reminder that we're not alone. You know, I have been struggling with this lately, just struggling with my faith, and lots of things have been happening where I'm questioning things, and you get these reminders like this from time to time that's like, hey man, relax, slow down, trust the process, retain your faith. There's so many things like this in our lives that we don't realize in the moment what it's all about. You need the hindsight, like this woman received when in hindsight, oh, I picked that dog for a very specific reason. And to her, it was normal thoughts. There was nothing going on in any other dimension that she could perceive. It was just her thoughts that said, oh, I think I want that dog. And the very scientifically minded would say, oh, that's just a coincidence. That doesn't prove anything. But I mean, come on. There are so many examples of this happening every day all over the planet where inexplicable, quote unquote, coincidences transpire that were clearly being guided by something that had your best interests in mind. And I was thinking of that in terms of things that I really think I want, that you are seeking out and you seemingly are not getting it for some reason. Why am I not getting this? I feel like I really want it. Why won't it happen? And you have to sit there and go, well, that thing you think you want could be a version of that dog that saved that woman's husband. Meaning, this might be a situation where I can't give you what you want because it's not in your best interest, no matter what you think about it. But we don't see it that way. We just look at what we don't have and what we think we want, and we feel entitled to something, and then you lose faith because you don't have it. And it's the most backwards way to view it, right? It's like, no, you just have to keep your faith in spite of what seems like overwhelming evidence to the contrary that you shouldn't have it. It's like, no, man, keep the faith. That's the only thing we have. You lose that, you have nothing. And I know that doesn't help myself or anybody else get through something that seems very unfair or is hurting you in some way or anything like that, right? It's so easy for me to say the words, but when you're in the thick of it, when that situation unfolds before you, the pressure, the stress, the anxiety, it overwhelms you, and you think to yourself, why is this happening to me? But even in those moments, there's this tapestry being woven through everything, including those times that you just can't see when it's transpiring directly. But in hindsight, it always reveals itself, and you say, oh, I see why that happened now. And it's easy to lose faith in that process when you're bombarded with things that are seemingly going against you. And I don't know, that was just a great reminder I was blessed with today in an innocent conversation with a random stranger. What an amazing story. And I just felt like I needed to put this on the record for myself, which is what most of these recordings like this are, is for me later to be like, oh yeah, remember that? When things get the toughest, you can point to something like this and say, yeah, but what if this is like that dog? What if you have all of these thoughts going through your mind, you're making these decisions, and it's being guided by something that has your best interests in mind? Even though it's something awful potentially transpiring, it's what needed to happen for all these other things to happen. And you're walking a fine line with that, right? Because it's this thing where you don't want to justify suffering for the sake of suffering. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about the perspective that a story like this gives you in relationship to everything else that you experience. And it gives you the opportunity to focus on things that happen that sort of mirror that. And you can place your attention there, and it restores your faith in that way. Like, okay, all right, there's something going on here. There's some kind of divine orchestration transpiring, and I just need to slow down, be patient, and let things play out. And stop trying to control everything so much. And put my will on it. That is just a dumb human will that doesn't know anything, you know? That's influenced by all this stuff going on in society and everything that's affecting other people. So anyways, that's it. Really cool thing that happened to me earlier today. Talk to you guys later. Peace.